Every rule has an associated cost, be it in time, money, or lost opportunity. If you learn to strategically break the right rules, you might regain all of them.
Daniel Kahneman is a Pulitzer Prize-winning author and a scientist, and he spent his entire life proving a simple point, and it's that human beings don't naturally think in numbers or statistics. We tend to think in meaningful stories. Meaningful stories are the medium of human communication, and they are the tool of our craft. Sometimes it is incredibly important for us as leaders to zoom back and say, what are we actually trying to achieve? Here's a question we hear fairly often from leadership groups, and it's the wrong question. The question is, how can I create a better culture? Here's what the research is showing. Culture is a result. You don't have to do deep archaeology to change the behavior, the culture in an organization. So the catalyst, the trigger, is the social media and political arguments. Now that you know that, you tell yourself, when this happens, I want to do that instead. And you load that reaction in advance. You have to do it in advance, though. It doesn't work in the heat of passion.
Whether you are trying to escape poverty or whether you are running a large multinational corporation, human civilization is essentially premised on the idea of trust. If you can be trusted to return value when trust is extended to you, if you can repay trust with excellence, that is the set of conditions by which you graduate to the next level.
So imagine, you've just finished that important meeting and you walk out to your car, but something has changed in your life, and you trace the change back to one decision that you made today. And it's the call to position yourself as a top-name expert in your industry by design.
It's a desire to help a country that really has a lot of potential, but somehow doesn't seem to be making it on the wealth stakes. It really is ridiculous in a sense that we have people like Elon Musk from South Africa who are now really exploring space and trying to make us an interstellar species at the same time as we have people who are struggling to feed their families. There's something tragic and something wrong about that.
Safe route in life. You are choosing to earn less than you potentially could.
And that's how ideas unfold all through human history. Now, it sounds quite simple, but there's something very profound about that.
Somewhere in between those 2 points is the person who knows a great deal, but also knows how to make it come alive.
This is called the ever-expanding adjacent possible. How cool is that? The ever-expanding adjacent possible. In other words, with each thing that becomes possible, something else becomes possible next to it.
Sometimes when your business is identical to the one next to you, it's you, the human being, that changes things. And sometimes when you are the face and the voice in the public consciousness, they will pay more for an identical service because they trust you.
Where's the starting point? The first idea that we have to really buy into is that it is not just about your qualifications. You stand up in front of a group of people and you say, who's the first chef that springs to mind? And you will always get names like, say, a Nigella Lawson. And the interesting thing there is there are people who are more qualified than Nigella, much more qualified, thousands of them, and yet Nigella is out-earning all of them combined. And what that tells us is that it is not just the qualification that matters. There's more to it than that.
You can see it in everything that she does. It's the tone, the style that comes through. It is difficult to compete with, it is difficult to argue with the person who cares the most about what they do. So, get that number in your mind. Picture it floating out in front of you. What would it do to your life, your business, and your reality if you were able to add an extra 0 to that number. And I don't mean on the right-hand side, I mean on the left.
Dean of Gibbs, and that's quite an interesting section just about adding personality as a form of innovation, and Michael Jordan was kind enough to do the foreword.
Awesome. Well, it sounds to me that it's incredibly practical and it's very, very simple to use, so hopefully the guys are going to go out there and innovate. Firstly, read your book and then go and innovate. Thank you so much.
And make a lot of money for themselves.
Absolutely, thanks.
Now, I'm not picking on schools here. The point is not to say that schools are badly run. The point is just to say we have thinking that is invisible to us.
Joining me now for a conversation about disruptive innovation is Douglas Kruger, a business coach, published author of 5 books, and a multi-award-winning speaker. 50 ways to smash silos, bust bureaucracy, and create a high-performance culture.
The principles are fairly simple, but when you amplify them up and scale them up, you end up with the Elon Musks of the world. So the results can be quite radical. In fact, we can go one step further than that. We can ask ourselves, which rules are our customers trying to break? And that, to my mind, is one of the most valuable things of all.
Hi friends, my name is Douglas Kruger. Let's talk about how to overcome poverty and become wealthy in your lifetime.
Tonight we're speaking to the author of Relentlessly Relevant, 50 Ways to Innovate, Douglas Kruger. Kruger is exploring how companies can innovate and become industry leaders, whether they're small or large. He joins us in studio now.
What people tend to struggle with and brands struggle with is the how-to of innovation.
Folks, my name is Douglas Kruger. I'm the author of a book called They're Your Rules, Break Them. And I'd like to share with you a few simple thought exercises you can do to see clever ways to innovate and become a strategic rule breaker. Start by asking a very simple question. Ask, which rules are people already trying to break? After writing 2 books on the topic and studying it for some 10 years, I've come to believe quite deeply that experts exist at the intersection of 3 qualities. And you have to have all 3 working together, or you disqualify yourself as a top-level expert.
Folks, sometimes following the rules is the most dangerous thing we can possibly do. Rules can switch off human intelligence. The longer you do things perfectly, the more invisible you become. When do people notice you again? Well, yeah. When do they usually notice you again? When you sleep with that? No, that's not the right answer. Usually it's when there's a mushroom cloud on the horizon.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon to you. What an absolute pleasure to be here. Quick question, who here owns a Ferrari? Seriously, not a single one. A couple of weeks ago, I saw something that you don't see every single day. It was an accident between a Ferrari and a VW Golf. By the time that I arrived, the VW Golf was on one side of the road, and it was a little shorter than it was meant to be originally. And on the other side of the road was this, what used to be a 6'3" gleaming red Ferrari, but was now a 4'2" slightly more crunchy Ferrari.
Now that sounds very abstract. Let me unpack what that actually looks like. Say that you are operating in abject poverty, and the best and only thing you can do, you get a job one night, say, sweeping a factory floor. It's the best you can get. It is nevertheless a step up. And it is as though the universe is handing you a test, and it is a trustworthiness test. Will you repay that small amount of trust with excellence? Will you, A, do what you were supposed to do, and B, will you go a little further than what was expected of you? Will you repay the trust with excellence? If so, a couple of things happen. One, you set up the conditions by which you can continue in that employment, which is already, it's a small step forward, but it's a step forward. The second thing is you create a sort of a tension with the universe that says, I can be trusted with the next thing. So it almost becomes this kind of a contract where the universe says, are you trustworthy? You show that you are. You show that you can go one step further. You create the conditions by which you might enjoy a small promotion. Now let's go to the top of that scale. You're running a large multinational corporation. You do something that is inherently untrustworthy. You do something in the background that is selfish, that is sinister, that goes against the fundamental rules of honest capitalism.
So instead of sweeping up the factory floor, you're sleeping.
The universe has just handed you a test. Can you graduate or are you going to implode? And how many times over the last 10, 15 years have we seen massive corporations do something untrustworthy, get caught out, and implode? It does happen. It is a shortcut to stealing wealth, but it is just about an assurance that you are going to go out of business over the long term.